Welcome back to CarScoops. Today we're in the 2025 Infiniti QX80. And before we got this vehicle, we asked you what you want to know about it. Today, we're going to give you the answers. Someone asked, how does it ride? And this kind of relates to some of the other thoughts that you'll hear me talk about here. Does it ride big? Does it ride small? How does it feel to drive on the road? Personally, I think it drives really big. This is not as long as an Escalade or a Grand Wagoneer, but it drives at least as big in my opinion. It is very, very tall. And so you can feel that when you're going around corners, it kind of leans over. You can feel that going on. Now it does have different drive modes, which I appreciate, and sport mode does indeed kind of sharpen up everything a little bit. But personally, I would like more control over things like the height of the vehicle. I would like to be able to put it in its lowest setting on my own and leave it there. Just leave it there all the time. That's what I would like. But that's not an option. You can't do that. This vehicle wants to automatically raise and lower as it sees fit. So in terms of how it drives, a little bit bigger than you might expect. Now some people are going to really like that. Me personally, I like a vehicle that feels kind of small to drive, despite however big its footprint might be. Now, a few of you asked about this whole situation. There's a lot of touchscreen buttons going on. There's a lot of piano black plastic going on. And here's what I can tell you. It actually reacts pretty naturally, as you can see here. It's pretty quick. It's pretty straightforward. It's really not overly complicated. Now, I will say this. Some of the menus can be complicated. It can be a little bit tough to find exactly what you're looking for at times. But I love that it's got Google built in. You can talk to it just like you would your phone or your assistant speaker at home. And in general, the graphics are crisp. They're easy to see. They're easy to understand, easy to read. Now, would I love physical buttons for climate control? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just the right move. But I understand kind of what they're going for here. They're going for a high-end aesthetic. And for the buyer in this category, this looks awesome. Now, is this going to be the future? I think we've seen super high-end brands that are saying that buttons are here to stay. I think of Rolls-Royce, for instance. If you go look at the interior of a super high-end Rolls-Royce, it's buttons. It's real physical buttons and knobs, right? Maybe Infiniti goes back that way. As it stands, in terms of functionality, you can see it works pretty good. In fact, this kind of like haptic touchscreen thing going on here works pretty good. It's weird initially because you expect to just have to touch. But if you just do that, it almost doesn't work at all. You have to really tap it a lot for it to understand that you're just doing a touch. But if you physically press on it, you can feel that tactile sensation in your fingers. So this is what you're going to get if you go with the QX80. And frankly, it's not terrible. Don't let it scare you away. Test it, drive it, see what you think of it before you just nix this idea, because you may not particularly like a bunch of touchscreens. Now, some of you asked about ride comfort. How is the ride comfort? Not just does it feel big or small, but how does it just feel in the cabin to ride around? Well, this vehicle has several different driving modes, right? It's got standard, eco, sport, snow, tow mode, and even a personal mode where you can kind of set it up the way that you like it. I would say in general, very comfortable. You can even feel the differences between those different modes, especially like sport to normal, for instance. You feel the suspension kind of relax, and everything gets a little more sedate and a little bit more comfortable. Now, when comparing this car to other high-end luxury SUVs, I think it does very well. I don't know that it's necessarily the leader in comfort, but I think Infiniti has done a great job of taking the bumps out of the road surface and allowing drivers to just relax and enjoy getting from point A to B without feeling like there's too much jostling. There's certainly not very much noise, and basically no vibration in this cabin either. One reader asked about ProPilot, the driving aid in this vehicle, and Nissan and Infiniti have different versions of this, so I'll put on the screen the exact nomenclature they use for what's inside of here. But How it works is you basically turn on the system, you set whatever speed you want it to be at, and then it takes over. It figures out how fast you should go around corners, it figures out how fast to brake, it'll hold you in your lane. It does a lot of good work for you, but it's not perfect. Like any of these systems, you still have to pay attention. You have to focus on the road and be ready to take over at a moment's notice. I will say that it does a nice job of alerting when you're not paying attention for some reason. If you lose focus and you look at something for too long, even if it's at the infotainment system, it tries to jog you back to get you to focus on the road. So it does a nice job of that. I'm really impressed with how well it slows down for curves. It does a phenomenal job of that. Now, what you just heard is a good example of a downside. It can't really handle steep turns. Now, most of these systems struggle with that. But if it's struggling to maintain a sharper turn, it simply has to give you control. Right there. If I hadn't done that, we'd be off in a ditch. So you do have to pay attention just like any other level 2 driving system. It's your responsibility to make sure that the car gets wherever it's got to go safely. On the other side of things, on the highway where turns are pretty mellow, it does a great job. It handled a 2-hour drive for me the other day and did most of the work on its own. Now, again, I had to pay attention. I had to be ready to take over. But, again, for the most part, it does excellently. It'll even do lane changes once it recognizes there's an opportunity for an open lane. There's just one little button on the steering wheel you hit, and it handles the change. One reader asked, how good is the sound system? Well, due to all sorts of potential issues with YouTube, I can't let you listen to it, but I can tell you it might be the best sound system I've ever heard in a car. I'm not even kidding, at least from the driver and front passenger position, and that's because of these bad boys. These are speaker grades in the headrest. Lots of cars have speakers in the headrest. Very few, in my opinion, have the type of speakers and the range that this vehicle has in the front seats. No joke, if you put on a sound or a music track with 3D sound, it feels like you're in whatever situation that is. It's incredible. It's seriously beautiful. The range is excellent. The bass is good. I really struggle to find any problem with this sound system. I really loved the sound system in the Jeep Grand Wagoneer from Macintosh. They did an excellent job with that vehicle, in my opinion. This is better. This is genuinely better. And it makes me wonder how much better can a sound system actually get than this. This is so immersive and sounds so crisp. Really maybe one of my absolute favorite features of this vehicle. Now, a couple of you asked how fast this car is, what it sounds like. Let's find out together. There's 60. So not super quick. It's not a rocket ship, 450 horsepower. It's legitimate, but not wildly powerful. At the same time, I think it actually sounds really good for what it is, especially once it's in the power. Think about what we just did there. We didn't brake boost it at all. It didn't have any boost at all when we started off right there, and yet it gained boost pretty quickly and then stayed in the right range. So, can't complain. Genuinely, that's adequate power in my opinion. One reader asked, if it was your money, money no object, is this what you would buy when compared to cars like the BMW X7, anything from Mercedes, the Cadillac Escalade, things of that nature? Well, again, I can't speak for my colleagues, but personally for me, no, this is not what I would buy. In fact, I would add another vehicle in the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. It sits at about the same price as this vehicle. Again, it's a top trim. And for me, vehicles like the Grand Wagoneer, the BMW X7, I know some of you will think this is controversial. I think they're actually pretty good to drive for what they are. This to me feels too tall. It feels a little too wafty. It doesn't feel very articulate, very sharp to drive, and I personally really appreciate that. In addition, the Wagoneer and the Escalade feel more spacious, and somehow it seems like Infiniti doesn't offer a rear seat entertainment system. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still a comfortable vehicle. The second row has massaging, ventilated, heated seats. The third row has heated seats and tons of great options for people who are all the way in the back. But personally, if it were my money, I would want something that's a little bit sharper to drive, has a rear seat entertainment system, and sits a little bit lower. Well, those are all the questions you had for us on the 2025 Infiniti QX80. We hope we answered them all. If we left anything out, or if you've come up with new questions, leave them for us in the comments section below. We'll answer them there. We'll see you next time here at CarScoops.